Well, happy Wednesday morning, everybody. Becoming a community builder. All of you community builders all across rural Alberta. On Monday, we gave you an assignment. We wanted you to look back so you could move forward. The idea being that to be a community builder, to have that leadership style and philosophy, you had to be keenly self-aware. How did I become the leader that I am today? And whether that leadership style that you deploy today organically grew up and took hold over a period of time, or whether it was trained, formally trained. You were trained to be a leader. Either way, the question is it what the times require? And before we can move forward, we probably got to figure out how we got here. So let's look at the questions quickly to better understand what they could mean to you. Let's look at question number one. Where did you grow up? Where were you born? Rural, urban, somewhere in between? I find that people that grew up in more of a rural setting are a little bit more casual. They're used to somebody just dropping by the house. They're used to going by somebody else's house, just popping in. And you know what I find? They like that in their workplace. They like being able to just plop down in front of somebody in their desk, in their office. Conversely, people that grew up in more urban settings where it was a little bit more formal, a little bit more structured, where neighbors didn't talk as much and didn't know each other as well. They're used to having to call and see, can we drop by? Not just dropping by. And they tend to be a little bit more formal when it comes to a conversation or setting up an appointment or a meeting. How about that next question? Who was an adult that had a significant influence? Now, let me be clear, that doesn't mean positive influence. Just who was the adult when you were a kid that had a significant influence? Remember the old expression, I'll never be like my dad, and then you end up like your dad? So stop and think. Are there some leadership traits that you gained from adults that were around you, both positive and negative? And the real question is, are those leadership traits still relevant today? Are they serving you well? And are they so deeply ingrained that you're having a tough time maybe unwinding them? That's just how you are, just how I am. Look at question number 3. Your first job. And what leadership experience or insight did you gain from that, positive or negative? Remember your first job, did you just get thrown into the first job? Or was there a formal training program? And do you expect people to figure it out? Because I did. Or are you empathetic to people coming on board and not really knowing? And so you go out of your way to try to have formal ways to assimilate them into the organization or into the group. These next 2 questions are incredibly telling. Who was your best leader? Who was your best leader and why were they so great? Now here's the funny thing about this specific question. From this specific question, I know immediately what you expect in a leader. Huh? Yeah, when you tell me who your best boss or best leader was and the attributes and qualities they displayed, I know immediately how you judge every other person that leads you. Now look at the next question. Who was your worst boss or worst leader and why? That will immediately tell me what you absolutely will not tolerate from those that lead you. Because you, when they act that way, if they act any way like your worst leader, you then equate them to your worst leader. Now, if you're in a leadership position and you want to gain some great insight into those that you're responsible for leading, ask them these 2 questions. Don't ask them to tell you the name. Just ask them to tell you the attributes and qualities of their best leader and the attributes and qualities of their worst. You will immediately know exactly how to act and exactly what not to do. It will give you instant clarity on expectation and what's intolerable to them and what they will completely not accept. Stop and think about those, how they impact you, and using it as a tool to better understand those you're responsible for leading. And then finally, final question, what one piece of leadership advice would you give someone else? Now there's a lot of facets to this. 1, it really talks about what you hold dear. 2, is it still relevant? Based on the authority that you have, the position you're in, whatever. In other words, is that piece of leadership advice that you would hold to be absolutely dear and true still matter today? Or still applicable at the level of authority you're at? Like sometimes I hear people say, lead by example. Yeah, but what if I lead 1,000 people? The person furthest away from me never sees me. Now, I might lead by example in the sense of the people who are closest to me, but my leadership needs to be long, long, long beyond the people who see me if I oversee 1,000 people. So I can't always lead by example. I might have to lead through systems and processes and values and principles and a whole bunch of other stuff we'll talk about down the road. So on the surface, yes, what is that leadership principle that you hold most dear, and it's a piece of leadership advice you'd give someone else? But then stop and ask yourself, is it still relevant? Is it still applicable? And is it still what the times require? Now, it's not for me to judge. I'm just laying it at your feet and asking you to look introspectively. Just a few questions that should provoke a lot of thought. Now, on Monday we mentioned an exercise, and this is something I hope you'll thoughtfully consider doing. That question of who's your best leader, I challenge you to contact them, if they're still with us. If your best leader that you've ever had is still with us, I challenge you to contact them. Don't send them an email. At minimum, call them on the phone. Contact them. Bring, bring. Hello, hello? Hey, I haven't heard from you in a long time. I know. I'm going through this leadership program with this crazy guy, and he asked me who the best leader I ever had was, and it was you. And I just called to thank you. I just called to thank you for the difference that you made in my life. I called to thank you because I wouldn't be the person that I am today if it wasn't for you. I just called to thank you and tell you that I love you. There will be silence on the other end of that phone. And then you'll hear these words. Are you drunk? Are you drunk? Now, let's be honest. If you made that phone call or went and had that meeting, what kind of an impact might you have in their life? Would you make their day? Would you make their week? Might you make their month? And in some instances, might you even make their life? Well, let me tell you something. You're a sorry excuse for a human being if you don't try to make that phone call. If you don't try to make that phone call. Why? Because you just agreed with me. We'd make somebody's day. Don't hold that gift back. And don't tell me you're too busy. Now, there's a second component to this. We long for leaders that will acknowledge they can't do it on their own. So start that today. Acknowledge that it was other people that got you to where you're at. I know that. I'm a result of thousands of one people who are willing to give me a break, give me a shot, give me a chance, to teach me, to grow me, to give me insight and give me wisdom, even when I had screwed up, even when I had messed up. Well, somebody did that for you. Thank them. And then internalize the first learning, which is somebody else helped me. And then the second learning, I can be that to somebody else. You see, community building starts with the capacity to build another human being. The capacity to see their talent and their ability and what they have to offer and bringing that out of them. That macro community building happens on a micro level. So, one, make that phone call to the person who made the difference in your life and thank them. Two, internalize the fact that you need other people to be a successful leader or person. Three, realize that you could be somebody's best leader. And when that somebody gets asked the question, who was your best boss? Who was your worst boss? That your name is in question number 4, not in question number 5. And even if your name is, yeah, they were okay, is that what you want? No, I don't think so. Okay, that's what the survey can mean, some insight. We'll talk about it more in the coaching session, of course. And I challenge you, take the challenge of the assignment, contact that person, and then let us know. Let us know on Facebook. You can email me, put it in the forum. Let us know how it went. Have a great day, everybody.